Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 lifting. So, Type 1 lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. So, this all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. So, just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So, like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. Hey guys, we have a new sponsor for the Type 1 Lifting podcast. The company's called Liberté Lifestyle. So Liberté is a French word meaning freedom, and the company was founded on the desire to have freedom to choose what we want to do with our lives. I actually had the owner, Nicole, on my podcast on episode 28, so if you want to go back and listen to her, she talks about how she started the company and what she wants to do in the future with the company, which is pretty cool. So they actually have knee sleeves, wrist wraps, shirts, shorts. Love the knee sleeves. I have the ice cream knee sleeves, and I love them so much. The neoprene's still good. The seams haven't split compared to other knee sleeves that I've had in the past, and I'm planning to keep these for a very, very long time. So Nicole actually gave me a promo code for you guys too. So it's all capital letters, TYPE, and the number 1. So it's Type 1. So go to libertelifestyle.com, check out what they have in the store, use the promo code Type 1, and save some coin. Now let's go to the episode. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have the co-host of Talking Elite Fitness and Morning Chalk Up writer and also a fellow rig shaker, Tommy Marquez. How you doing?
Yes, that last one is the most important because it's the one I'm most proud of.
Yeah. So how tall are you roughly?
I am a little bit over 6'3".
Okay. I'm 6'6".
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, so it's amazing when I do some of the workouts with like shorter people and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill them in this workout. Then like when they get to the pull-ups, it's like 2 of theirs is like 1 of mine, and I'm like, I can't win.
Oh man, that's why if anytime I'm doing like a pull-up or a long range of motion movement, I just point towards the corner so I don't have to see anyone else in my peripheral because I know it's gonna my cycle time is just gonna be slow.
Yeah, and congratulations on that complex lift too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually hit the same numbers too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I such a boneheaded move for me to do it out of order. I couldn't believe it. The whole time I was giving some friends, we were joking around. I was giving some friends some crap, and I'm like, yeah, make sure you do it in order. You do it in order. And then I had wad brain in the end of it. I was the one that did it out of order and had to do an extra one, but yeah. I was stoked nonetheless.
So were you planning to do it like add more weight on the second try? Like that was the third try or fourth try?
Yeah, so I did. In credit to one of my buddies at the gym, Dario, I was literally gonna just like slap something super light on, yeah, and just walk through the motions. And he goes, listen, you're not like, that's just going to be a wasted lift for you. If you really want to maybe hit something and shoot for the moon, throw the 45s on right away, get something at 185. That'll give you a good benchmark of like how much interference is going to be there. So I did 185. I think I did 222, 257, 277.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cause I went 225 right off the bat, and I was like, holy moly. Like, and then I went the 255, and I'm like, okay. Then I did 275. And then my judge is like, hey, are you going to do another one? And I'm like, I felt pretty good, but I'm like, nah. He's like, because I got to go to the bathroom. So I was like, okay, I'm done. So and he just left him, went to the bathroom because he had to go next. So it was pretty funny. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. My open experience wasn't the greatest because my endurance just went to the crapper. But like it was just because I was more concerned like throughout the whole year of just lifting heavy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's I definitely felt like I do a lot of like endurance work too on the side. Like I've run an ultra marathon before, and a trail run specifically. The flatland stuff kills me. I have too much ADD to be able to do the flatland stuff, but and so I've always done that or martial arts, and those things usually give me my win towards the end of the workouts.
Yeah.
And I just haven't been doing those things. And I got to a couple of like 17-1, which is 21-2. I got to the end of it. I just had nothing. I got to the bar muscle and had nothing. And definitely motivation for the future.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for the tall guys too. So,
yep.
So before I want to talk a little bit more about CrossFit. So Sean told me you're like a huge Marvel fan. So and superhero fan. So I am a huge Marvel fan as well. Like I've been collecting comics ever since I was like a little kid.
Yes.
So so who's your favorite superhero and what's your favorite movie?
Ooh, it depends. If we're talking about the comics, I'd probably have to say Wolverine or Gambit. Okay. I'm a huge Gambit fan. I love Remy LeBeau. There's something about him. He's so cool. Like I like his like being able to like charge anything into an explosive, and I was a poker player too, so like the cold card thing is kind of plays with it too, and he's just kind of like this French Cajun kind of freewheeling. Wolverine is in a similar like mindset, I think, of like freewheeling a little bit. He doesn't play by anybody else's rules, but I would say in the MCU actually, probably my favorite is Thor. Okay. I loved a lot of people hated Fat Thor, and I loved his character arc because like from the first movie, his thing was always, despite being a god, grappling with his own like human like shortcomings and his humanity in a lot of those instances. And to me, that like brought him at a level that a lot more people could relate to him, especially. And as a result, that made for some of the best epic like scenes in the like his arrival on Wakanda and Infinity War like gives me chills. And you know, his first dual wield before the battle for Earth and in Endgame like gets me fired up too. Those are the things I want to watch before a workout.
Yeah, very cool. So did you collect comic books when you were younger?
I did, and I was also a big card person too. So I collected a lot of cards. If you look at our podcast, my brother framed a bunch of my Marvel Masterpiece cards from like 92, 93, like in a cool collection for me. But I haven't kept really any of my comic books. I used to read them, and I had a bunch of buddies that liked them too, so we passed them around. And the cards were the ones that I definitely collected more of. I don't know if my mom would have appreciated the stacks of comic books that I wanted to have.
I mean, I have 7 long boxes like filled with comic books, and my wife's like, no more. And actually, my wife for my 40th birthday gave me the holy grail of comic books. So I'll show it to you. The Silver Surfer.
Oh my gosh! That's awesome.
Yeah. So she gave me that to my 40th birthday, which I was like, I literally just was like, I am not worthy.
You keep that encased behind a lock. Oh man, that's phenomenal.
That's in my closet, like, and it goes nowhere. So yeah, I'm a huge Silver Surfer fan. Like I have like pretty much almost every single issue that I can, except for like the first series. But like I even have like an old school poster that's worth like some good money too. So
yeah, growing up in California, he was always a guy that like a lot of us kids like thought was cool because of the whole surf brought like and I always liked some of the issues around him, like being with Galactus and just to me I don't know if I want to say anti-heroes, but because I don't think that's him, but I think there are these like misunderstood villains and misunderstood roles, and I like it when they get blurred a little bit, and I like mixing it up a little bit, and so I enjoyed a lot of the storylines that I got to read with them.
Very cool. So enough about comics, because probably everyone's getting sick and tired of it. So when did you get involved with CrossFit?
So I got involved with CrossFit at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. So I grew up in Central Coast of California, which the house I grew up in is a 15-minute drive straight up Highway 101 from the ranch in Aromas, which is right off 101 too. And my best friend from high school is is from Aromas and lives across the highway. Like, I mean, 2-minute drive from the ranch in Aromas. And as the crow flies, probably less than a mile. And his cousin had lost 100 pounds doing CrossFit. His cousin also happened to go to high school at Watsonville High School with the Castro family. So his first gym that he walked into was the ranch in Aromas and lost 100 pounds with them.
Wow.
And he told my best friend, like, hey, you should try this. You're young. Like, you guys are looking for something. He started it, turned around and was like, yo, you got to try this too. And we both did it together. And it was like this awesome source of like health and fitness. We were both on a big fitness kick at the time. And we both always played sports. And I walked into the ranch and basically never left after that first workout. I knew instantly that this was what I was looking for from both a fitness and health standpoint, and to kind of fuel that like inner fire that burns as like kind of a lifelong athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like me, because like after college, I really didn't have anything, and then like I was like doing the bro splits and like still playing, but then CrossFit came when I was in the Air Force, and then I was like, they had a CrossFit gym in the block in the gym, and I was like, oh, okay, I get to race after all these people and see if I can like beat them, and then like I just got super competitive and stuff like that, and it's just always like I want to be the best. So and like that's it can be a plus and a minus of doing that, but I mean I think CrossFit's fueling my fire just for being competitive.
For sure, and it's interesting because I think over time, shoot, I'm in year 12, 13 of this now. Like, I've learned to take the focus, like competitive focus, from outward to inward, and I just I guess that natural maturation process. So like I can keep that spark going while still turning it outward from time to time to talk trash with my friends, and give Sean the business here and there, or I was talking smack to all the Buttery Bros this morning when we were looking at the quarterfinals workouts, and that's always fun too, because I think that'll be a piece that I never lose. But for the most part, the personal pursuit has really kind of that flame has been fanned more than anything.
Very cool. So when did you get the call to go to the big leagues of the CrossFit media?
Oh man, that was 2000. That was April, I believe April of 2011. So I had been training at the ranch for a while. I got my level 1, was a trainer there. Had the opportunity to open up an affiliate in my hometown that didn't have any affiliates yet, and was working with Dave Castro's older brother, Kenny. And just through the connections at the ranch and being in that area, got to cross paths with a lot of people from HQ, a lot of people from the games, and was very fortunate in that regard. And as we do, water cooler talk takes over, and you start talking shop. And I'm just a big nerd in general, whether it's sports, comic books, from bourbon has been my latest nerd obsession, and like all kinds of crazy stuff. And I just like I go down those rabbit holes and I dive in head first. And CrossFit was that for me at that time too, and the sport particularly. And I guess they were in the kind of the growth point for the games in 2011. I went to the 2010 games and volunteered with Rogue, and they were just in that growth point where they needed bodies for the media. And there's like this weird, anytime like a sport starts to arise, there's this weird cross section of, you either have people that know the sport really well but don't know media, or you have people that know the media really well and don't know the sport. And so they were like, well, we think we can teach you stuff, but the sport, so like just go out there and help dictate the sport to our media team, which in a formal role is more of a producer now. But at the time I was just carrying luggage and things like that. And that was, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and Captain Handsome, Roy McKernan, was on the other side. And he's just like, hey, it's Roy McKernan. Your name's been tossed around a bunch about potentially helping us out on the media side because we could use some help. Would you be willing to get on a plane in a couple of days and fly to Jacksonville? And oh, by the way, you'll be gone for the next 5 to 6 weeks. And it was just like one of those opportunities where like I got to jump at this. And, everyone at the gym was super supportive and allowed me to make sure that I was covered. And hopped on a plane to Jacksonville the next couple of days, and basically from there on out helped out with the regionals that year. And then every time after that, if they're like, hey, do you think you could help us out with this, whether it was moving stuff around the studio, or it was like cleaning the studio, or just like working the teleprompter. Crazy thing enough, I think my actual in for the media team, the thing that kept me around, is I was the only person that knew how to work the teleprompter. it was like this like turn wheel that controlled the pacing of it. And I think they went through 4 or 5 people trying to get them to do the teleprompter at the right pace as people read. And I think this is where my video game proficiency helped out, because I was just like, yeah, I got this. And they're like, well, he's the only one that can do the teleprompter, so we'll keep him around. And, eventually got to, pitch ideas and, produce content a little bit more, and, get in front of the camera and talk about it as well.
So did you ever think before, like when you just started doing CrossFit, that you'd actually get into the media space, or did you have other plans of doing something else?
I didn't really know. I knew that I wanted to help people. My previous profession was in mental health services.
Okay.
And I was a little burnt out at that at the time. So I kind of wanted to take a break. I was thinking about eventually going back and maybe going back to school to get a secondary degree. And I knew that CrossFit was a way for me to, I was so obsessed on helping people from the neck up. And I saw CrossFit as a way that I could help people from the neck down while also having that carryover, because it was my own mental health outlet. So I'm like, I'm going to give this a go for a little while. We'll run the gym, see how that goes. And then honestly, I had zero idea about the media team until I got that call. But it was just another one of those serendipitous moments where I was like, this is really cool. I think I can provide some value here at some point. So, just like everything else, like I'm going to be studious and try and work hard and, keep trying to make myself valuable.
Yeah. So when you prep for like interviews or like live competitions, how do you prep for all that stuff?
It depends. Interviews are something that over time, I think I've been very fortunate to have people like Sean that are just absolute pros to develop some skills behind it. But I try to always come back to, and Sean was super helpful in this, in the W's, right? The who, what, when, where, and why. Use those as a framework to get an idea of what I think will most resonate with our listenership and our viewers, right? So like a great example of that is we interviewed earlier this week Brooks Like, who's a 12-year veteran of the NHL, who's really into CrossFit now, and he's training and he's doing a lot of it, and he's a pretty recognizable person. But for me, I wanted to understand, okay, well, why is like the who is pretty cool, obviously the NHL, and his background as an athlete is always important, because I think people like seeing pro athletes cross over left and right. There's always some interest there. But the why is something I spend a lot of time on. Okay. Like it is probably the thing I dig into the most as an analyst and as an interviewer, because I'm always trying to pick apart, and this honestly comes with repetition, is what are the things that if I'm a everyday CrossFitter, or if I'm someone new to CrossFit, or if I'm someone that has thought about CrossFit, and I go through all those different rank and file of what might be their tie to the community. What is one thing that I will find interesting about them? And I'll pick one thing for each one of those things and how it might be of value. And then I'll start to map out a roadmap. How can I tie all of these together as I go through in one comprehensive interview? So for Brooks, right, the elite athlete and a high level crosser, he was, and this is where my research background is very helpful. He was the player representative for the Washington Capitals in the NHLPA for 9 years. Yep. He helped negotiate collective bargaining agreements, things like that. So for a sport that's on the verge of getting bigger and is going to need some sort of athlete representation, he's a great guy to have it. Other great example of it is for the common person starting CrossFit, they have these stories of just being completely humbled by it. Mm-hmm. Well, you do some pre-interview work. I've listened to other things that he's been on, and I realized that like when he started CrossFit, he couldn't do an overhead squat. He couldn't do a whole bunch of things that he had neglected as a pro athlete, which highlighted his lack of well-roundedness as an athlete. And for me, that's a tie-in for the everyday person. And then now for, the kind of middle of the road that likes a little bit of everything, just seeing how if I'm in the community now and I like the training, talking about his training protocol, because for a pro athlete to get humbled and then dial it back up to the point where he's at, training is a great avenue for that. So I try to put myself in the shoes of people in different walks of life across the spectrum in the CrossFit community, or even outside, and then find out what the tie-in is there. That's a huge thing for me. And then I would guess the analyst stuff. Everyone's system's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. For me, if it's a live broadcast, it goes, I treat it in a macro to micro progression, right? If I'm talking about an athlete, I'm talking about, if I'm doing color commentary, or if I'm an analyst, I start micro and work to macro. So Sean always says, the play-by-play commentator is the who and what, right? Explaining what we're seeing. As a color commentator, for me, it's the how and why. And for the why, I start small. How is what we're seeing play out affect his next rep, mm-hmm. his next movement? And then the micro to me is next rep, next movement, this workout. And then the kind of medium in between is the next workout, the next day, overall standing a little bit. And then the macro is more overall standing. What does this say about him in his season? What about him as an athlete and his progression towards his overall goal? And that's how I kind of frame my boxes. And to me, that makes it a very simple thing. So, and in color commentary, it's very much the as it's a live call, it's very much micro and medium. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, when we're recapping and talking, it's very medium and macro. And that's, to me, that's my system. I suggest if anyone ever asks for me for help or anything like that, I always offer that up to them, because you can label it what you want, but that's just how I see things. And that's what it makes sense to me. And that allows me to do the research that I want to do in terms of like historical trends and data and numbers and things like that.
Yeah. And speaking about numbers and data, you are an absolute genius when it comes to like remembering workouts, even athletes' names and stuff like that. Because when I listen to your podcast, you just talk about like a random workout. I'm like, how the hell does this guy remember this stuff?
Oh man, I'm very fortunate. I think a lot of people, have different techniques of memorizing things. I'm very much a visual learner. Yeah. And a visual, like, if I can look at something, I see it, and I take it. I usually have a pretty good memory about that, and especially when it comes to like leaderboards and stuff like that. But I just honestly spend a lot of time on the leaderboard. For me, I'm very curious. I think that is a hallmark of being like a true nerd, right? You're just curious about things. It leads me on more YouTube rabbit holes than I'd like to admit. But at the same time, like, it leads me into places of trying to seek out trends and data trends. And just over time, if you spend that, it's almost like this weird secondary memory thing too, because if I'm looking at every, so say a great example of this was going into I think it was 2016 or 2017 final day. I think it was 2017. The opening workout had ring muscle ups in it, and Cassie Lance McWhorter and Emily Bridgers were in a close tie. Mm-hmm. And everybody was talking about like, who is it going to be? We were trying to look for trends. And then I went back through and looked at how Emily Bridgers' average finishing every time ring muscle ups show up, regardless of it. I think it was 2017. This is where my memory is actually failing me a little bit, because it was the year with no barbell. That was the year without barbell.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. Which 2017. It was 2017. And just by virtue of me looking up all those workouts with muscle ups, anytime a muscle up workout comes out, I have that anchor from having done that research. So there's a ton of bleed over. Mm-hmm. You start looking for trends and things like that, it starts to pop up. If I'm starting to figure out how someone does on a very specific micro thing like a movement, I'm de facto looking at every workout across history that's had that. And it's kind of tedious, but I also like glean a lot of information that I'm not necessarily looking for that happens to pop up. Beyond that, I don't really know how. I think I'm very fortunate in that
Yeah.
regard. I'm like, I remember song lyrics from like 30 years ago, like
Yeah.
when I was 5, and like all that kind of crazy stuff, like songs I haven't heard in decades. And it's just, maybe that's more a testament to what mom and dad gave me than anything else.
True, true, yeah. So I asked Sean about this earlier, a couple days ago. So in 2018, after the games, you guys were like killing it. You had like a whole bunch of sponsors ready to go, and then CrossFit decided to just get rid of like the whole media, almost the majority of the media staff. But like, so what was your feeling, during the cuts and then after the cuts?
It was interesting because I look back like that. We're fortunate to be doing work again there, doing some studio content stuff. And I look back at that first go round from 2011 to 2018 with such fondness, like it really was. And there were obviously some issues within the company that came to light during all the drama last year. But I do want to say a lot of those issues were very much more localized internally within the company than most people, than maybe the media covered it. And outside of that, our media office in Scotts Valley was phenomenal. I mean, you ask anyone that worked there, and it was an amazing place to share ideas and be creative and open and free and very inclusive in that regard. And I think that allowed us to flourish as a media team. And that made maybe me see things a little bit through rose-colored lenses, which happens, and I'm not ashamed of that. But towards the end, after the games, there was an initial round of layoffs that happened that felt different, and that there's like this weird time when you can suddenly something takes a turn in a way where the well's starting to get poisoned. Maybe it's a drop or two in the well, but and that particular layoff, because suddenly there's people who are always so open with us and talking with us from an administrative standpoint, and some of the higher ups were suddenly like guarded and protected. And for the first time ever, I felt like I was maybe not being treated with honesty. And so in some sense, that kind of maybe put the idea in our head that maybe this might be coming to an end, something that we otherwise 2 months before might have never thought we would have left. So that maybe softened the blow just a little bit,
Yeah.
because some things made us skeptical. But when it finally did happen, there was just this feeling of betrayal. Honestly, if I'm being completely frank, you pour so much of yourself into something the way that we did over those times, and it has nothing to do with the final product, right? The CBS coverage, the ESPN coverage. It's all those little things that happened before that got us to that point that ultimately is what drives that feeling of betrayal, right? It's like it's 3 to 4 weekends straight of me sleeping on Heber's futon in his office because I couldn't leave the office because we were there around the clock for regionals, and getting up at 4 a.m. to let loggers in so we could catalog every minute of every heat of regionals, and doing all these little things that in the end nobody sees, but we know contributed to the success of the company and the growth of the sport, and ultimately made the community happy. And to feel like that suddenly the person at the people at the top just didn't value that, it almost feels like getting disowned. I wouldn't know what that feels like, because thankfully I have wonderful parents, but I felt like we got disowned.
Yeah.
And it was really, really, really tough to swallow, because we all dedicated our lives to CrossFit, whether it was media, whether it was training, whether it was affiliates. It was just, we poured everything into that, and we got spat in our faces a little bit. And yeah, that was tough. There was a lot of resentment early on.
Yeah.
And thankfully I had a lot of people that I could lean on that were supportive in saying like, hey, like you'll bounce back. Like, this isn't the end. You'll find a way. And as much as it felt like we were starting back at square one, they were right. And I'm very grateful for that. But that's a tough, like, rejection and loss is a tough thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I mean, on the bright side, you have an amazing podcast, Talking Elite Fitness with Sean. So, and I also asked Sean this too. So, how do you guys like gel so well during the podcast? Because especially with your one-liners, and he has one-liners too, and then you guys talk about like random things, and like, you guys like are just the perfect pair for a podcast.
Well, it starts with a foundation of friendship, right? Like Sean's my brother, and we've been fortunate to go through a lot together in our time working for the media team. And one of the things that was a foundational piece of our media team is that everyone liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all like each other, and we all agree. We're all pointed in the same direction under this like same banner that we all believe in, and there's something magical about that. And so like we had so much fun at the office. It was insane. And you can like crazy magic stuff happens when you're having fun, with people that you care about. And so when we started this podcast, I'd wanted to start a podcast for a long time. And when I went to Sean, I was like, listen, we got to stay in this, man. Like we put a lot of work in. I know I still love it. I know you still love it. Like we're obviously like good friends. And I think the dynamic that we have is something special, and it'd be a shame to let that go.
Yeah.
And because I think we can still provide some value to people and make some people happy and still serve others in a way that will allow us to keep doing what we want to do, and obviously feed our families and keep a roof over our head, but also like continue to give back. And so that was kind of almost kind of a no-brainer. Also, Sean is amazingly good at what he does.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
He and anyone that knows anything about the TV business and like back in like the, early, late 2000s, early 2010s, in the teens, I guess. But he was just one of those people that was kind of caught in between. Like he was a consummate pro, and he had all the skills to be on a major TV network, and he just kind of got lost in the shuffle somewhere. And so when he came to CrossFit, it was just like a godsend. He's got the voice,
yep.
He's got the presence, he's got the passion, and he's got a little bit of that just like casual, doesn't take himself too seriously, where you feel like super self-important,
Yeah.
And he makes my life so easy. And there is a subconscious connection for us where like, I know that if something's off, he's going to pick it up, and he knows if he's like navigating stuff behind the scenes, because there's a reason why we wear earpieces. And if people heard what was going on in our earpieces, sometimes they would have a newfound respect for what Sean does. And so he will just kick it over to me and know I can just ramble and rant about stuff. And so the friendship and there's that dynamic that we've been able to build through working together. That's just kind of hard to quantify. And then honestly, we just have a lot of fun, like that's a really important part. And I think what you've seen from a lot of the content creators that have come out of the CrossFit space, out of the CrossFit HQ space after getting fired, that is a common thread amongst all of us. The Buttery Bros have as much fun as anybody does.
Oh, yeah.
Rory McMurden has a blast in Tennessee. Like we all had a blast on the sanctional circuit, and a lot of us are just doing things that we genuinely enjoy.
Very cool. So what is it like with the Buttery Bros? Like, because obviously I saw the video of you in Vegas, so
yeah.
And you guys had like the whole suits and stuff like that, which were amazing. So
yeah.
I know they like to party, but like it seems like they're really serious about their craft and like really hone in, especially with editing and stuff like that. They're like top notch when it comes to like YouTube, people.
Totally. It's, to me, it's like I always use this phrase when I describe my fiance Tiffany. It's like not only is she my best friend, but my inner child and her inner child are best friends too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something very like primal about that, like because I very much still feed my inner child, because I think what keeps me human and keeps me like not being a jerk. And I think she does that too. And I think that's why we get along so well. And I feel like I'm feeding my inner like child, maybe a little bit of my inner wild child every time I'm with them, because I just like enjoy having a good time with them. But the crazy thing about it is that they never let it consume them, right? Like they are still able to adjust and do their professional side of things to make sure that the quality is high, the presentation is high. And I love that about them. I love being a multifaceted tool and being someone who can if there's one hope I had for myself as a human, is that I could be the person that people describe as a Renaissance man. Like you can make do in any scenario, and you can hold court with anybody, and be a service to anyone, and all those different things. And I love that they're able to be flexible like that and still have a good time and not take themselves too seriously. And obviously they're some of my best friends, and we have been through like hell and back too, when we were first laid off from CrossFit. So it's being with them is just so much fun, because I know, like, I got a little bit of a wild streak in me. I get that from my dad. I know that, like, if I'm going with them, like, high energy, like, we're going to have a good time, and it's going to feed that, like, that little wild hair of me a little bit. And it's crazy because Heber doesn't drink at all. So, he's just having all of that fun naturally.
Yeah, he's on rain all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. A little caffeine.
Yeah. So I kind of want to talk about, like, since you started the podcast, CrossFit had some changes with, the new CEO and all that stuff. So what are your feelings on the new CEO and the way that CrossFit's going?
I'm happy to see that for the first time that there is an ownership group and a leadership group that truly embraces all aspects of the company. And not just the affiliates, not just training, not just the business side of it, not just the games, but all of it. And I think that's really, really important. And I think there's going to be some growing pains, and there's going to be some a steep learning curve over the next couple of years, I think, as that group really figures out the mechanism behind what makes CrossFit churn and what they bought when they bought CrossFit, the company and the community that comes with it. And so I think there's still a lot of growth to be had there, but I do think that it's important that from the outset, they have been open to listening. And that's a huge deal. Reaching out to people, seeking feedback, seeking advice, being open to listening. The fact that Eric, on his first day and that he was announced, published his email is, like, in this day and age, you don't see that.
Yeah.
And it's been reflected in our experiences with him too. Like, he invited us out to Boulder to come interview him for the podcast. We wanted to do video. He invited us into his home and brought us into his home and had an awesome conversation, was very open and forthcoming with us. He worked out with us, which is amazing. That's too.
Cool. Yeah.
And, and I think it's important that he's also just like a fan of the sport too. He's a fan of the affiliates in the sport and all of those different things, because I think there's this like, again, maybe it's tapping into that inner child, right? Where, like, you want the best and you see the best as a possibility, and you're not beaten down by like the jaded, kind of illusions that the world can put in front of you from the business side of things, especially if you're operating at the stratosphere that he operates from the business side of things. Yeah. So it's cool that he can tap into that to just sit and appreciate what it is that you do and what we do and things like that. So I think they're making steps in the right direction. They're adding people. They're trying to be more inclusive. They're not going to be perfect. I don't expect them to be perfect. I don't think it would be fair for anyone to expect, because we haven't been perfect. So I think if I keep that in mind, I'm optimistic about the future and where it's going and what we can see from the community once we finish getting through all the craziness that has been the pandemic and a lot of the other things, because the community has really shown its resilience in the last 18 months, because it has been nuts.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because I like was working out in my basement. I had like a whole gym set up down there. Thank God. So, I mean, I can't imagine like how resilient some people were just for bodyweight workouts, even like with bands or even like anything like that. I mean, I'd be like, great, more burpees or air squats or push-ups. Like, I get super bored.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I got really good at push-ups and air squats for a little while, but I wouldn't mind being inside of my affiliate more.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, with the whole Noble actually being a sponsor for CrossFit, obviously it's cool seeing, an in-house, CrossFit made product come into be sponsoring a CrossFit Games. So what are your thoughts on them?
That is the thing that stands out most to me, right? Like, that is the thing I'm probably most happy about, is that an organically created CrossFit brand is now has been able to succeed and grow to the point that they can be at the forefront of something like the games. I have great relationships with Reebok and people at Nike and stuff like that. Like I've been very fortunate in that like they have always like treated me well, and I've been able to try products and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, I'm also excited to see what can happen when a company that was born out of the same people that, go into the affiliate day in and day out can do. It's I think Reebok did a lot of good during their time there. And if anyone who was around back when that Reebok deal got signed, there were a lot of skeptics, and there were a lot of people naysaying it. And there were a lot of people saying that that was the death of CrossFit and that was going to be the downfall and all of those things. And none of that happened. And Reebok was really supportive. And so now I'm excited to see a company born from that same kind of that same forge that we all came from as athletes do it. Noble at the time was probably the company I had the least amount of exposure to personally. So there's been this kind of cool discovery phase for me as far as learning more about the brand, getting to have conversations with the people. I knew some people from Noble, in the past, and like getting to talk with them. Like I had a great talk with Todd Melanie on the podcast not too long ago, where we just got to, talk about the history of the company and talk about what their vision for the future is. And also like, he was very open to me pressing him about some issues about where the company can be better and addressing shortcomings and things like that. So to me, that's some of the same level of like open-mindedness that Eric and his team are bringing from the top. So it's nice to see that. Not that it wasn't there before, because Reebok was definitely open and available too. It's just one of those things where it's nice to see them doing that as well to kind of continue to the future. And like, it's one of those things where like, if Noble was willing to step up to the plate and do that, then like, heck, I want to see him succeed too. Whoever decides to put their name behind our sport and our methodology, I want to see him succeed.
Yeah, very cool. So with the CrossFit Games, I've always wondered if, this question, do you think that CrossFit and the CrossFit Games needs to have like kind of like a villain in the games? I mean, because a lot of people are saying, a certain person, might be the villain, and like, he could pull it off, but I've seen videos of YouTube videos of him working out, and he's like, very easygoing and stuff like that. So, do you think there should be a villain?
It may sound weird to say from someone that literally loves the comic book lore, where like, a good villain, and as someone who is a pro wrestling fan, where like a heel turn and a good heel can really make it. I don't know. I don't know if I would tend to lean to say no, that it doesn't need one. To me, the worst thing, especially within the sport of CrossFit and the community as well, is inauthenticity. And to me, the last thing I would want is for this villain to be manufactured, and not by virtue of who they are and what they do and what they want for themselves too. Because then to me, it's just contrived, and in the end, it's like, to me, that's the territory of like reality television,
Yeah.
For me, we have villains and we have things like that all over the rest of the world. We spend our days polarized over villainhood in our politics, in our media, and all of these other things. And like, to me, I like CrossFit as a place where I can look to the floor, and whether you like it or not, like, some people will still clap for the other, the other athletes. That has become a little bit played out at times, because I think some athletes do it out of like, they feel like it's an obligation. But I do like the fact, like, for the most part, all of those people on the floor I don't hate.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of other athletes that I can hate and do all this other stuff. And I don't know. Like, to me, like, I try to like be open about it, but I don't know. I just don't think we need it.
Yeah, I totally agree because everyone cheers for each other, like you said before, and the only kind of battle I like is two guys going like chase like Noah Olsen and Matt Fraser when they were like towards the end, like when
Mhm.
Fraser was getting the trying to get the white shirt to be the leader. I mean, that's a good battle. I mean, and that's what I like, and everyone was like all about it, and having a villain may tarnish kind of like the CrossFit brand a little bit, because you have
Mhm.
this guy who or guy or girl that is mean and like not really the CrossFit way, and it kind of will have like new audiences kind of like push back a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I think if we get like 20, 30 years down the line and CrossFit is a widely accepted, like a more mainstream thing, and the sport is more mainstream, I think maybe then, because I just I don't think that a villain would ultimately be good for the CrossFit messaging and trying to grow in like its core messaging.
Hmm.
It's like every single person out there is like putting in super hard work and like really trying to like there's this level of like I personal identification with what's going on in those athletes' bodies because we've all been like beaten and worn out and like pushed through workouts and things like that. That I just don't know if someone's personality as a villain needs to be there just yet. Like I think these you look at these other sports, right, where like they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars, right, and um, at the end of the day, all of the athletes in these pro sports are going to go home to a mansion and a nice house and be taken care of. And that's not the case here. So like, I don't know what being like the jerk or being like the villain that everyone hates is going to do for you.
Yeah,
Like, I don't think the sport is there to be able to support someone like that while still having it be lucrative for them, I guess.
yeah, and then they're not going to get sponsorships too, so that's going to be even worse.
Yeah. I should say my high school principal, who passed away unfortunately like yesterday, I think, had this phrase. It was the best piece of advice I ever got. Don't be a jerk. And then he would always say that after every speech. Don't be a jerk. And to me, if that's something you can live by, then generally you'd be successful. And I want our athletes to be successful. So I don't really want anyone to be a jerk.
Yeah. So there's during the Open, you guys talked about it. Like the younger, like some teenagers are actually like in the top 10 of the Open. So, do you think that there's going to be like a new regime that might be better than this group of people?
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the doorstep of that. You look at there are I want to say, I have it right here actually.
Because I do
Uh,
remember, in a video, they did have like the a snatch, like the max one rep max snatch, like back like way back was like maybe 135, and that's just like an easy power snatch for most of these female athletes now.
yep. And if you, so I wrote this article, this preview that came out. I believe there's 15 or 16 women that are 22 or younger in the top 120 in North America alone. That's not counting Europe. And there's something along the lines of around 12 for the men. And that number for the men jumps to like 24 if you include 20, like 23-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
too. So there's this huge wave of athletes that are already very, very, very good. Particularly if there's a ton of teenage young women that are like 16, 17 and crushing it, I think they will start to usher that in if they foster their holistic health as an athlete properly for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you look at other sports like gymnastics and other sports where you see success at a very young age, there's a very high risk of burnout early on too, and whether from injury or from just like excessive repetition and the the throes of what it takes to be a professional athlete from a sheer volume standpoint, that maybe 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year old kids aren't ready fully to embrace yet, and as a result can kind of paint their picture long term. So I think if a lot of these athletes are being smart about their training, still developing other areas of their athletic, I guess, prowess, and not being so hyper focused and allowing a more holistic approach. I have no reason to believe that this is not the next generation of people, because I mean, they're doing some things that was
Not even thought of.
Exactly. I mean, Dallin Pepper's 19 and he's snatching 300 pounds, and he's finishing top, top 100 in the world in the open, and he's obviously got the lungs behind it because he's won the teenage division 3 times. And Emma Carey finishing second, Mal O'Brien top 5. It's like it's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, like, and then like you see me being a 41-year-old and like, can I get there? And I'm like, I've already missed my boat, but which is all good though.
But I think it's also like, to me, I think there's a lot of value in exploring the outer reaches of the human experience as far as CrossFit's concerned, right? Like, if these young athletes are capable of such greatness at such a young age, just through the same methodology that we're doing, then I think that there's reason to believe that we can still find at least a relative amount of greatness in us personally compared to what we were before. Like, I'm still hitting lifetime PRs at 35.
Yeah, same here. I'm hitting PRs at 41, and I actually that 277 lift that I did the complex, I placed 30th out of the world, and then like I was tied up with like 12 other dudes, but I mean, if I went up another one, I'd probably be in the maybe top 15 or top 20.
It's like, think about that, right? Like, when did you ever think that as a 40-plus-year-old person that you would be the top 50 in the world, top 30 in the world at anything?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Like anything regarding physical activity, it's like, I think that those performances there, as well as the masters athletes, to me kind of just broaden the landscape of what's physically possible for anyone, and opens up the game board a little bit more. So to me, that's also like encouraging for myself, even though some of those young women and men are half my age.
Yeah.
So,
and half your height too.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. At least I can still dunk a basketball. Like, as long as I can still hold that, like, that's my thing.
Yeah, very cool. So we're getting close to the end of the podcast. So one quick question. So last year before COVID, you were like bouncing around all over the place, like going to sanctions with the morning chalk up and doing podcasting and YouTube and all that stuff. So how did you able to manage, like, home life, work life, and kind of like trying to be sane at the same time?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that Tiffany, my fiance, is a saint, and that she is like, she lets me. She is very good at balancing the understanding of my need to go out and explore, with raising her hand and being like, hey, I need some too, like, and she's been very good and open, and we're very communicative about that, which it is a very good center for me. But at the same time, like, I'm very, I don't know, like, I think I've always just been kind of someone that's like, I'm at my best when I'm like active in a lot of different avenues. And I like, when I'm like sitting at home and I'm very like singular focused at things, like that inertia of like slowing down like weighs on me heavy. And when I start to like get dialed up and start doing more things, that like all the sensors go up and I get better at focusing on all these different things in succession. And it's just, I have a couple of things that I like to do, like, I do a lot of like the meditation stuff at the end of my day.
Yeah.
I think that kind of helps a lot. Just kind of like have some me time and focused on those things. A lot of family and quality time with my friends is very helpful too, and like helping me organize, like setting aside time for me and Tiffany to enjoy life outside of all those things is very important, because it keeps my passion for the other things very high as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's also like, it sounds weird to say, but like, what I get to do for a living is freaking awesome.
Yeah, I
like,
agree. Yeah, definitely.
Like, there's a level, and I think Tiffany is really good about this too, and some of my friends are like, there's like a point where like you just kind of have to like snap into reality and be like, what I'm doing and what I get paid for, and like what I do to put food on my table and support my family long term, is really, really cool. Like, I can complain all I want, I can be upset all I want, I can be discombobulated and feel beat down and one of those things. But if I take a moment of like meditation, if it's that, or if it's I'm reading and I'm honest with myself, and I'm honest about what I'm doing relative to what I want to be doing, like those are in pretty close alignment. And obviously, like human motion spans the gamut, but the reality is eventually I need to realize that what I'm doing is really, really cool, and that it usually keeps me centered and keeps me focused and allows me to be successful in those things.
Very cool. So, do you have any goals that you want to hit, like personally or business wise, by the end of the year?
Yeah. So I'm in the process of kind of reevaluating our goals for the podcast, because we've been very fortunate to beat all of the downloads goals. And so I think we're kind of in this rediscovery phase of like how we want to evolve it and move it into that next phase for us, and what that maybe looks like. Right now, personally, I want to get the games and the sport back into national and international level broadcast worthy media production.
Yep.
That's a big focus. So I'm very fortunate, like myself, Sean, and a bunch of our friends are back working with Hamilton Road Productions, who's been contracted by HQ to do all the studio work. And we're starting to rebuild that like foundation of what, put the games on CBS in the first place, and so working on that and hopefully expanding that to be able to help and support like the semifinal events. And then personally, like I want to get married.
Yeah.
Tim and I have had to postpone our wedding a few times, and really we're in this process of really trying to solidify what an ideal wedding will look like for us if COVID is more of a reality than we hoped in a year, or if it's a blue sky scenario and everything in between. So we're kind of putting our contingency plans together. And then I'm hoping and this is like another personal goal. I'm hoping by not the summer of 2022, Tiff and I can buy our first house. So that has been a goal for us for a while. And we've started to put like a dedicated, like focus on saving and doing all those things. And, talking with our families and stuff like that, and putting together plans to help us financial health plans that will allow us to do so. So that's like another big thing on the plate as well. And then, we'll see. Then maybe after the wedding, start a family. So those are some like next 3 years type goals.
Yeah, you got time. So you got time. So you kind of talked about this earlier. So let's just say you have somebody that's like brand new in the media space. Like how does someone get in the media and like get better at the craft of like, talking to people or being in any type of media space?
Yeah, it sounds weird to say, but like don't be afraid to like take like I don't want to say rip off and steal, because that sounds really bad, but like lean on the ideas and performances of other people. Like a lot of what I learned and what I was able to like build for myself was emulating other people that I really liked what their product was. And we live in this world where like there is so much information at our fingertips. Like if you want to learn how to edit, if you want to learn how to take photos, there are YouTube channels and videos with creative ideas and things like that. And once you hone in on that, so say this might be more for someone that's that's like maybe doing like analyst work or commentary work. Like don't be afraid to like put in like these what sound like very tedious hours. Like say you want to be a color commentator, right? Like or a play-by-play person. There's tons of CrossFit events out there, right? Live stream. Go pull up an old regionals competition. Listen to it, take notes on how Sean or someone did that. What are the things that they're constantly doing? And then use that note building, mute it, go back and do it and call it yourself. Yeah. Use the phone recorder on your phone and do those little things to get reps in, because no one is going to, and this was true for me to an extent. It's like no one is, those reps of doing it aren't just going to like manufacture themselves. And so for us, like, for me, it was like going through and watching like my favorite analyst on Sports Center or my favorite analyst in, another avenue of sports that I really, really liked. And I grew up in what I consider the golden age of the ESPN Sports Center anchors,
Oh yeah.
with,
Yep.
with Stuart Scott and Kenny Mayne and Rich Eisen, and like even on the back end of like Chris Berman and um, Charlie Steiner.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. And all those guys, like, emulate those things, and then go and find other experts in their craft and figure out what are some things that I like about what they do. And that I've heard Marcin Heber give similar tips and tricks to people, like, you go and you see something, like, I like that transition wipe with the camera. Well, there's a million different tutorials on how to go figure it out, and then go out there and do it with your camera a million times till you iron it out.
Yeah.
And it's very similar. It sounds like a cop out, but it's very similar to what we do in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I want to do that. And you're like, okay, well, you got to practice the fundamentals behind it, seek out the information for it because it's there, and then just practice it.
Yeah. Cool. So, where can people reach out to you if they have any questions? Like, if they want to ask you anything with media, CrossFit wise, like, where can they reach out to you?
So, Instagram DMs. I respond to both our podcast and my personal one as best as I can. My email is on there. So tommy.a.marquez@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out. And then from there, like, hopefully we can connect and chat. Like, I try to be an open book as much as possible. So, the only reason I have any success in this business is because other people were willing to help me out and support me in that and continue to do that, which is why I'm able to do it. So I'd be a fool not to try and help others.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for the chat. I had a good blast.
All right.